Jonathan helps shape the laws governing intellectual property and the internet through a combination of legislative and appellate advocacy. He is representing clients with respect to the drafting of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA, and the Database Protection Legislation, Uniform Computer Information Transactions Act, UCITA, and other federal and state statutes relating to intellectual property and the internet. He complements this legislative advocacy by filing amicus briefs in significant cases related to these provisions. His deep, substantive knowledge of the application of intellectual property law to information technology permits him to counsel clients on complex copyright issues in many parts of the world. So the job is allowed. He's also an adjunct professor at Georgetown University Law Center. He's written extensively on intellectual property and the internet, including a book, Interfaces on Trial, and over 60 articles. Jonathan's an LA boy. Received his BA from Harvard College, his law degree from Yale College, Yale Law School, and from 85 to 205, so 20 years, he worked at the DC office of Morrison and Forster, 13 years as a partner, and he established his own law firm in 2005. His wife Lisa, over here, former vice president of the congregation, and she writes a culture column that reads off the listserv on Fridays. Son Jeremy, and daughter Jessica. Loves to show off on Rosh Hashanah at Whitman, and also teaches always in our chief room. Jonathan, for the
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here today. I'm going to be approaching this issue from the perspective of my field, intellectual property law. Now, the first thing you have to understand, and we heard a little bit about intellectual property law before, and so this is a very serious matter. There are many different forms of intellectual property, and so to properly assess this issue about which is better from the intellectual property perspective, we need to kind of run through several of these different forms of intellectual property. We'll start with trade secret protection. This is actually a state law form of protection. It prohibits the acquisition of a trade secret by improper means, such as breaking into a company and stealing their recipe. At the same time, it's also, trade secret is defined as information that derives economic value from not being generally known. So again, the economic value is the key aspect of trade secret protection. So this is what often companies use to protect the recipe. So the Coca-Cola, the recipe for the formula for Coca-Cola is seen as a trade secret, but it really only applies if you are operating in a commercial context. So typically, your own recipe for latkes or Hamentashen really would not be subject to trade secret protection unless, let's say, as in the case of Margie Littman, she derives economic value from her recipe for the Hamentashen. But certainly for companies that make Hamentashen and latkes, trade secret law is a relevant form of protection, but I think they're probably equal. I mean, it's hard to say which is better from the perspective of trade secret law. So on this issue, I would say it's a tie between the latke and the Hamentashen. So let's look at patent protection. Patent protection is a federal form of intellectual property law. It applies to a new and useful process, machine, manufacture, composition of matter. And the invention must not be obvious to a person having ordinary skill in the art. So that's always the critical issue, is it obvious to a person having ordinary skill in the art? So I did a search. I'm actually not a patent lawyer, but I was able to do some basic research. And on this issue, again, it seems that there's a tie between the latke and the Hamentashen. So example, I was able to find, there are machines for making Hamentashen and Hamentashen. So this is an example of a cutting machine for triangle cutting sheets of pastry. So this is a patent concerning Hamentashen. Here's another one. It's a method of producing stuffed pastry triangle. So you know, you are able to get it, assuming you're able to meet the non-obviousness standard. Similarly, there are patents concerning latkes. I mean, again, this is an apparatus for making, these are real, I'm not joking, these are real, these are real patents. There is a patent for the apparatus for making potato pancakes. So when I was doing the search, I had to search for both latkes and potato pancakes. And similarly, there are patents for the method of making a potato pancake and even for the formula of the potato pancake, because the formula for the recipe could get patent protection, again, assuming you're able to meet the threshold of non-obviousness. So again, I'd say from the perspective of patent law, it's a tie between the Latke and the Hamentashen. So now we get to copyright protection, and this is actually my area of expertise. Copyright is a federal form of protection. There's a Copyright Act that's available for original works of authorship fixed in a tangible medium of expression. Exactly what that means, no one really knows. There's a lot of litigation trying to understand these different, exactly what to unpack the meaning of that sentence. But typically, when you think of copyright protection, you're thinking of movies, books, songs. That's the typical type of subject matter that is protected, and then within that kind of subject matter, ideas and facts are not protected, whereas expression is protected. So if you have so in this book, for example, the book is copyrightable. The descriptions in here are protectable expression, but the various facts about what the various debates and when they occurred and who participated in them, those are the kinds of things that are not protected. So that just gives you a quick overview of the idea: expression, dichotomy, fact, expression. Now, with respect to food, generally food is not seen as protectable subject matter. However, in some cases, you can have food can be treated as a sculptural work. And it's in that, and there's actually been litigation, I'm not kidding, there's been litigation about the protectability of food as a sculptural work. Again, the recipe, that's in the area of trade secret and patent protection. The recipe cannot be protected under copyright. But again, the food could be a sculptural work. And then there's the issue of whether, again, it's really original enough, does it meet the standard of creativity? Another issue is it fixed? It has to be fixed, again, fixed in a tangible form of medium, and there's an argument that food really isn't fixed because it deteriorates. On the other hand, certain foods can last a long time, and probably, again, a Hamentashen in this case might be more fixable. There is also the issue of functionality. I mean, the purpose of food is to be eaten, and so there's a real question as to whether food can ever pass muster and not be functional. However, I think there is a good argument that certainly if you can separate the expression in this food sculpture from its function, then you would be able to get protectable. And so this is where things start to get a little complicated and troubling for me. So first of all, you can look at these Hamentashen, and you can see here there are different colors. You can decorate them, and a lot of the colors and the decorations really are separated from the function of the Hamentashen. Here you can also have an array of Hamentashen that can be very decorative. And again, you have different colors, and you're able to put different things on it, and really it does have expression and expressive quality. Here, and I really want you to focus on this. I mean, I don't know if all of you can see, but you have flowers, you have ornamentation, and I think some of the previous speakers focused on how decorative Hamentashen are. Well, here you can really see a highly decorative Hamentashen. I would submit that all of that really is protectable expression here. Again, the way the chocolate is spread on it, and I think like again, as you diagram it, it could be protectable. And then when we were looking for, and I prepared this presentation with the assistance of my daughter. When we were looking for other examples of Hamentashen, we found rainbow-colored Hamentashen. We found also designs. We found like Hamentashen made in the shape of Jewish stars, really sculptural works. Just the resolution of those images wasn't high enough, so we weren't able to present them to you, but believe me, they're there. Very, very decorative, I think highly expressive forms of Hamentashen. In contrast, need I say more? There isn't a lot you can do with the latke. Even the packaging of the latkes are kind of boring, and I'll get back to this in a minute. And again, here, another one. So, when we looked through a lot of images of latkes, and we really weren't able to find any latkes that really had much of an expressive quality. Now, of course, I found this to be very troubling. I mean, this is my field, and in my field, it seemed to point to the other guys, okay? And so this was, again, very, very troubling. I then said, okay, is there another form of protection that might, again, tip things in favor of the latke? And so I started thinking about trade dress. The first thing that came to mind was trade dress protection. Trade dress protection is actually a subset of trademark law. It's both federal and state law. And it really goes to the visual appearance of a product that signifies the source of the product. And so, think of the red package for French fries at McDonald's, or some other kind of packaging, the blue for the blue Tiffany's box. I mean, you can have sometimes colors or shapes that really, you look at it automatically, you look at the source of origin. Now, again, the problem is you kind of go back, and if you look at this, I mean, it's nothing. Okay? This doesn't help you at all. On the other hand, with the latkes, with the Hamentashen that I showed before, you could imagine that you really have a very ornamental Hamentashen that really could trigger in your mind, you could be associated with the source of origin. So, in other words, if we would look at from an intellectual property perspective, the Hamentashen wins out. And that started to be, again, very, very troubling to me. And then I was in despair. And so then I remembered something that my Rebbe told me. No. Jess, where did you put this picture? This is my Rebbe. And I thought back to the sermon, the High Holiday sermon. Remember, the theme of the year is food and Jewish values. And then if you think of the sermon that Rabbi Rudolph gave, during the High Holiday, he was talking about imposing choice over instinct. And then the examples he gave was both Yom Kippur and Kashrut. He talked about the example of Yom Kippur. Obviously our instinct is to eat, but we choose not to eat. On Yom Kippur, with Kashrut, obviously, there's all these different foods, but again, with Kashrut, the system of Kashrut, you choose not to eat certain foods, and this is what he said. By making these choices, by imposing choice on instinct, we proclaim our humanity, we reinforce self-discipline. We are reminding ourselves of our Jewish identity as many times a day as we eat. We're teaching delayed gratification, and we're infusing our diets with holiness. Okay, as we impose choice on instinct by taking the route of keeping kosher, we are eating as human beings might best do. And then he gives this very poignant example of when he and Gail go to a restaurant and how they decide, I'm going to eat this, and I'm not going to eat that, in terms of consistent with kashrut, as opposed to when they go to like a kosher restaurant where you can eat everything. And he says, we were much more aware of the fact that we kept kosher in the restaurant than at the kosher deli. And we were much more aware of the fact that we were making moral and not only taste choices. Because at the restaurant we had to say no to certain foods. We were being more fully human, more fully Jewish, and still getting a good meal. When you do that, you discover that there can be holiness, not only nourishment, in every meal you eat. So, if you look at the Latke and you look at the Hamentashen, of course you prefer the Hamentashen. The dog prefers. So I hate to say it, but you made my case for me. The dog preferred the Hamentashen. The kids in the back preferred the Hamentashen. But we choose to prefer the Latke. We choose the Latke. And in choosing the Latke, we assert our humanity, we assert our Judaism, we